what's up, hello, my name is Emma, and today I am discussing episode 4 of season 2 of Shadowhunters. I feel like I still don't have my complete feelings on this episode altogether. There were really good things, and there were also pretty bad things. But it's not one of those episodes where I feel like it was mediocre or underwhelming. I just haven't decided if I really enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it yet, if that makes sense. For this season so far, we've had constant improvements in things like dialogue and acting, which are fantastic, and I will continue to say that if they are getting better or if they are staying at this consistent rate of them being really good. This is the second week in a row where the pacing did not drive me crazy. It felt very normal, like a TV show should. It wasn't intrusive on the plot, and it really just contributed to my enjoyment of the episode. So I think if we can have a third episode in a row, I will say that it has improved altogether. Great character moments as always, and I can't wait to talk about them in depth with you guys. And we also got more book content in this episode, I feel, than almost any episode so far. We have a lot of little details, which always bring me enjoyment to see, but I do feel like part of the episode had a stronger core relation to the books, and there were some actual plots that were potentially being discussed or maybe moving towards, which would make me just ecstatic. For bad things, they also broke a lot of rules of the world, and just, again, things just don't make sense and aren't logical. We'll get into all of that because now I'm gonna jump into spoilers. So if you haven't watched episode 4 of Shadowhunters, head on over to freeform.com, watch it, come back, and we can discuss. But bye non-spoiler people. First thing, starting off with an improvement. We have a scene that I felt really captured Clary and Jace's relationship, which I discussed last week was something I felt they were severely lacking in. I got some classic City of Bones, City of Ashes Jace Wayland feels, which was fantastic. We have these lines where Jace is like, "You need to stay away from me. There is no together for us, Clary. There never can be." I could just clearly see all of those moments where Jace is really closing himself off to Clary and being very distant because opening up to her would mean opening up to his feelings and whatnot. So that was really enjoyable. I also really liked how Clary is like, "You are my brother, you are my family." Because everyone fucking forgets that in City of Ashes, Clary is trying her hardest to accept Jace as her brother and completely push her feelings aside, and Jace is the one that is trying to get her to feel the way she wants to feel, and Clary is willing to accept Jace as her brother, which everyone fucking forgets about, and I was happy to see that in the show. We have a great moment between Alec and Magnus that I felt ultimately was a very normal interaction, and that was super nice to see. Their dialogue felt very authentic and it really flowed with them, and I liked the context of the conversation where Alex is like, "I know Jace was the one that really helped me out of it, but I felt you there and that meant a lot to me." They're joking about their first date, and it was just really cute and I enjoyed watching it. We are introduced to this idea that Jocelyn is being dispatched to Idris by the Clave. I personally did not like this executive decision. Firstly, Jocelyn left the Clave 18 years ago. That's why she was in hiding in New York, because she left the Clave and did not want Clary to grow up as a part of the Shadow World. While by birth Jocelyn is a Shadowhunter, she's not part of the Clave, and they're just disregarding that. There's also the fact that 2 episodes ago, Clary and Jocelyn were the 2 Shadowhunters, the only 2 Shadowhunters who were not allowed to leave the Institute because of their relationship to Jason Valentine, and now they can just send her off to Idris. When I talk about inconsistencies within the show, I don't mean to book content, I mean to stuff like this where they establish something in one episode and the next episode there's no real correlation. And then there's also the fact that what the fuck is Jocelyn gonna do in Idris? Shadowhunters are dispatched from Idris into the world to fight demons. Idris is protected by wards. She really wouldn't be doing anything there, so I don't understand why they would send her there as compared to another institute. That probably would have made more sense to me. I really like the scene when Alec and Izzy are going out to find out more about the Mundane's death, and they're like, "Clary, you're coming with us." I felt this was a really great scene to include because a couple of episodes ago, Clary is like, "I'm not a Shadowhunter and I'm not a Mundane, I'm nothing." She didn't feel accepted by either of the worlds, and this kind of gave a little piece of, "You're a part of us now." Of course, Alec is like, "Well, you weren't my first choice," but it just felt really true to their characters, and it was a really warming moment for me. Another thing I didn't like was this heat signature rune. To me, it seemed like the showrunners took the idea of a sensor, which is one of the only actual pieces of technology that Shadowhunters use in the books. It's used to detect when demons are around or when demons have recently passed by, so it seemed like they kind of took that idea and just made a rune out of it. This bothered me for a number of reasons. The first one being, they have so much technology now. They have all of this surveillance equipment and holograms and just all of these new high-tech gadgets to help them fight demons. Heat signatures is something where I felt they would more rely on technology for that, and I would have been okay with them using an actual gadget, something like a sensor, to register when demons have previously been in a location. The second thing is, every rune a Shadowhunter uses freely has to have been created by Raziel at this point. We have no knowledge of other people being able to create runes other than Clary, which they haven't even really developed on yet. Heat signatures, didn't exist in the 11th century. It was very convenient yet not logical, and I thought there was a better way to go about it. I also really liked the Clary and Alec moments. They're another relationship that I feel has a lot of great chemistry on scene together, and I like how they have kind of taken what has already been established in the books, the little bit of interactions that Clary and Alec have together, and fleshed them out in the show more and made them a little more positive. You know, Alec is being Alec when he's like, don't slow me down or you're gonna get us killed, but he's also patient with her when introducing this heat signature rune to her, and he allows her to kind of grow without being annoyed, which is something I enjoyed. Another great moment from that scene I felt was when Clary is with the mundane who has just been possessed, and she is like, I know nothing makes sense right now, but I'm here to help you, I promise. That was very Clary Frey to me. I feel sometimes Shadowhunters lack the empathy that mundanes do, and so in dealing with mundanes, I feel like Clary really shines in that respect, and it was really well represented on screen. We have a prime example of why I rewatch these episodes so often, because I did not pick up on the fact that Jace has a dream that he kills Clary. I'm sorry, what? Did we just get something right out of City of Fallen Angels? I won't go into too much detail for spoilers, but it wasn't something I originally saw in my first viewing of the show, and I was really happy I finally caught that. I will get to my mixed feelings on this inclusion later because there are some things that make me wary about it, but I hope this means we're moving towards including an actual plot line from the books. We have Hodge in the cell next to Jace, which I don't really understand, but he says that being in the Silent City makes you have these dreams, so I don't know if they're just giving an excuse for it at the moment or if it's actually going to have relevance later. I really hope this plotline does come into play, but it was a nice little, book content. I really enjoyed that. We have a Raphael and Magnus moment, which was totally unexpected, but I was so happy to see it. Magnus is like my poor boy, and I just really liked that they included their relationship. This is not something that's really focused on in the books until it's actually mentioned, and even then, it's not fully fleshed out like it is in something like the Bane Chronicles. So I'm really hoping that we're gonna get a little bit more exposure to their past together, especially with Magnus maybe being more open about his past than he really is in the books when he's saying that he has helped out Downworlders. I just really feel Harry has been shining in the last couple of episodes. You guys know I wasn't a huge fan of him as Magnus in season 1, but I think season 2, they're doing really great things with his character. On a related note, when he's with Camille, he was like, these Downworlders that I have helped grow, they are like my children, they're my family. And that was some emotion leaking out of Magnus, and I really enjoy those moments. I don't like show Magnus when he's completely over the top sassy, and I don't like him when he's completely serious. I like episodes like this where he's able to banter a little bit with Alec and then also have emotional moments, and they're doing really good things with that for now. I noticed that this episode did not have as much comedic relief as others. That might have had a little bit of an influence as to why I feel like I didn't completely enjoy it as much as other ones, because I rely a lot on things like Simon's humor. But of course, we got at least one good line from Simon, and I felt that was when he enters Magnus's apartment and Raphael is there, and Raphael's like, you didn't lift a finger to find Camille. And Simon gets so defensive and he's like, lift a finger? I portaled to freaking India and all I came back with was this box. Speaking of boxes, Grave Dirt, more book content. Like, this is what I like to see. More than it just being the inclusion of book content, I felt it fit the show really well. We have this moment where Raphael cuts Simon's hand and says, we need Camille's blood in order to open the box. Camille is your sire, her blood is in you. Finally, that change in plot had fucking relevance. I spent all season 1 moaning about how I don't understand why Raphael isn't Simon's sire. This is a good example of how to really execute a change like that, and I was totally happy with it. And I also feel it was a good way for them to reintroduce Camille into the show. It felt very authentic with the way that the plot line's going, whereas when they reintroduce some other characters like Hodge, who shows up in the Silent City out of nowhere, or Dot, who just happens to be outside the Brooklyn School of Art, this one felt like it really fit into the plot, and I really liked that. Of course, we get another great Clary and Izzy moment, and I like how pretty much consistently in every episode we have a moment where they get to spend time together and talk and kind of develop their relationship, which is really nice. It was just a heartwarming girlfriend moment, and I love how it ended on like a classic Isabel line, like, nobody in Indus is gonna teach you how to fight demons in 5-inch heels. I'm so happy they're developing on Clizzy. It's really, really great. So, we enter this plot of Demons in the Institute. When I first saw the trailer and it was like Demons in the Institute, I went through a lot of mixed emotions, but the first one was, finally, they're fucking incorporating demons again. I have been noticing this lack of actual demon fighting for a show about demon hunters for quite some time now. I was really excited for them to incorporate actual demons and make the show less about Clave and Downworlder politics and what these people are actually meant to be doing. Unfortunately, I was kind of let down. Firstly, it felt kind of like a cop-out that they would reintroduce demons without really having demons in the show. But instead of creating these awesome CGI demonic creatures that could become a really iconic part of the show, they made it smoke and made them possess people, so they weren't even really using demons, they were just using the same actors as before. It was just weird because even though they were like, demons in the Institute, nothing really felt different because it was the same actors, they were just fighting each other. They explained it could get through the wards and not set off Isabel's necklace, which is something else I noticed, because it was one of Valentine's experiments. It just felt very convenient, especially because, like, demonic possession, it doesn't happen in the books for a good ass reason. Firstly, on a logical scale, demons should not be able to inhabit a Shadowhunter's body. They're covered in runes. Runes are like poison to demons. It doesn't make sense. Secondly, not gonna go into too many spoilers, but there's a very specific part of a Shadowhunter's birth that protects them from demon possession, which is a huge part of the plot of City of Fallen Angels. Like, it's actually the entire fucking plot of City of Fallen Angels is due to the fact that Shadowhunters are not supposed to get possessed, and all of those events of City of Fallen Angels are the direct catalyst for all of the events of City of Lost Souls. So that's the reason why, while I'm excited that they were incorporating Jace's dreams, which is from City of Fallen Angels, I'm a little wary because they kind of canceled out the whole reason for that plot. We get to Jace's trial, which is a scene I felt had really good parts and really bad parts. For the good parts, I thought Dom was fantastic. It was clear he was going through a lot of emotions at once, and I felt each one of those emotions. There was some sort of visual representation of the soul sword pulling the truth out of Jace, and he looked uncomfortable and in pain, which is described in the books, but I thought they did a great way of representing that physically. I also really like how we have this line that is so clearly part of Valentine ingrained into Jace's character when he's like, I've seen the Clave's lack of action, your lack of action. It was really powerful, and I like how they didn't have to actually tell us that this was something from Valentine. It was clearly shown in the show. I feel like sometimes Shadowhunters isn't great with subtle representations of character and motive. I feel like a lot of the times they need to clearly state everything, and they succeeded in that scene, which I really enjoyed. Also, another thing I didn't pick up on my rewatch, Jace tries to cut his own throat with the mortal sword. Once Aldertree gives Jace his sentence, he picks up the soul sword and goes to like put it against his neck, and he moves away like he's gonna slit his throat and commit suicide. And the only thing that stops him is the Silent Brother, who makes his brain hurt, so he drops it. I thought that was so interesting. I really wish they developed on it more. I just felt it was a really interesting character decision, and I would have loved to see that explained better because it was glossed over so quickly. For the bad things, I don't understand the relevance of Jace's relationship to Clary while he's on trial for high treason. What relevance does Jace having more romantic feelings for his sister have to the trial where he's questioning his loyalty to the Clave? It didn't fit, and it felt really weird. But the thing that bothered me the most, let me just get this straight. Jace is sentenced to life imprisonment for admitting he is not loyal to the Clave. But we're gonna threaten Isabel with de-runing and making her a mundane because she talked back to the leader of an institute. Inconsistencies within the logic of the show. That just makes no fucking sense whatsoever. It was just so stupid. Like, if you're convicted of treason, maybe that would be a reason for de-runing, because why on earth would the Clave want Shadowhunters who aren't loyal to them? But it just... whose decision was that? That being said, I really liked the moment where Jace is back in his prison cell and Valentine comes in with the soul sword, and I'm like, oh my god, more book content. Although it was not the exact scene, it felt very true to that moment where Jace and Valentine are having a conversation inside of the City of Bones. I really liked the line from Jace where he was like, I guess jumping off the boat wasn't clear enough. Like, that's my snarky Jace. Okay, so we get this moment where Hodge just dies. I think a lot of people misunderstood this tweet, but I tweeted something along the lines of, they just killed ... are you joking? And I didn't want to spoil who they killed, but that was about Hodge. I think a lot of people thought it was about Jocelyn. No, I was more upset about Hodge's death. It just felt so pointless. Like, Hodge was brought into this episode for no other reason to die. Like, why not just ignore him? I would have much preferred that. It was just so unnecessary, and he also died so quickly. Like, if you looked away for 2 seconds and missed Hodge getting a knife in his head, you wouldn't have even known he died, and I just feel like that's kind of sloppy. Hodge himself and his death just had no purpose to the episode, and it just felt like it wasn't needed at all. With Jocelyn's death, I'm actually not as upset as I think a lot of you would expect me to be. Is killing off a character who is not dead in the books a big deal? yeah, I do feel like out of the main cast from the books, Jocelyn is probably the most dispensable. Jocelyn just doesn't have the strongest character arc out of everyone that's been established for so long. Like, she woke up and she really just has no purpose at the moment. So it kind of makes sense to me that they would kill her off. The thing is, I spent most of the episode not realizing she was dead. I must have been tweeting when they showed the part where her chest was ripped out because I didn't make the connection. I thought she was just injured this whole time. Normally I would blame something like that on Shadowhunters, but I do think it was just me. But like, at the end of the episode, my last thought was, so like, is Jocelyn just still on the floor? I now understand she's dead. I don't have concrete feelings on this yet because her death is obviously going to have a larger role in episode 5 with at least what I see from the previews. I will make my determination on how I feel about Jocelyn's death after this episode, where they have seemed to include some necromancy, like Clary is trying to bring Jocelyn back. If Jocelyn stays dead and is no longer an active character for the rest of Shadowhunters history, I would be okay with that. I think that means Shadowhunters took a risk and they went with it and they did it well. If at the end of episode 5, Jocelyn is completely reinstated to health and is totally alive and keeps going on in the story, I will be severely disappointed and lose so much faith in the writers. That just means that Jocelyn's death will hold no significance whatsoever because it's like it never happened. I read this article talking about Jocelyn's death, and one of the writers had said that it was a decision because it will help Clary's evolution as a Shadowhunter. So either way, her death is kind of just like a plot device. But if they stick to it, I think I'll gain a lot of respect for the writers because they did do something that was super unconventional that nobody expected. If they completely go back on this plot they've just created, I'm gonna be so fucking disappointed and like really bothered. But like I said, I think they're leaning more towards Jocelyn is actually dead now and she's not coming back, in which case, again, I will be very happy with that decision. I really like how this episode ended on a very emotional note. So Jace comes back into the Institute and he sees that Simon is with Clary and he's hugging her, and it's very obvious that Jace wants to go over there and comfort her, but he stays back and lets them have their moment. That honestly gave me a lot of parallels to the City of Bones movie, when after their fight, Simon and Clary reconcile and Jace is kind of just like standing there and letting them have their moment and not saying anything about it. That shows a lot of strength, in my opinion, for Jace's character, and I thought that was like a great way to end the episode. And of course within that, Jace goes over to his family and it's like the Lightwoods all together, and even though Izzy's injured, you know, they're all together once again, and it was kind of heartwarming and very sad at the same time, and it was a really nice way to end the episode, in my opinion. I have noticed I start off these reviews being like, man, I don't really know if I like it or if I don't like it. I think overall I can say I enjoyed this episode. Like I've stated, there are problems that I have big issues with, but I feel like they are succeeding in a lot of other aspects of the show. And while I don't necessarily like the idea of like forgiving bad parts because of actual good parts, I think good portrayal of these characters is really selling the show for me, and I'm enjoying it much more in general despite all of those problems that I have. We will see how next week's episode goes, but of course let me know in the comments of this video what your thoughts on episode 4 of Shadowhunters were. But that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon for a new one. Bye!